Okay guys, welcome back. In this video we're going to give you a quick overview of XMPlayer so that you can become more familiar with the menu items, a little bit of technical data, as well as the different elements that you're going to use to create your ads. So first we'll jump into the File F menu. So File F gives you all of the basic options. For example, if you want to create a new program, you can go right here to, or a new ad, you select New N. If you had a previously created ad that you want to make some changes to and then re-upload to your screen, you can go ahead and hit open. And then we have save if you're saving it for the first time, save as if you want to make a copy of a previously created file. We're going to skip a few of these options because like save as with materials, UDIS publish, cloud publish, most of these options you won't be using for the basic creation. But then we're going to jump right here to send current program. Send current program F. After you've created your content and once you're satisfied with it and you're ready to upload that to your sign, that's going to be an option that you use pretty frequently. That's going to allow you to upload the files that you've created to your sign. Preview allows you to get a quick preview of what you've created so you can get an idea of how it's going to look on your screen, see the placement of all your elements together. So that's it. You know, elements are like your pictures or your text and all your text, your videos. You can see how all those work together before sending it to the sign. Setup, for the most part, we're going to skip these options because your sign's going to arrive fully configured, and typically if you come across any issues that require you to enter this menu, we're going to perform a remote session with you where we'll log into your screen and make all those adjustments for you. So this is not a section you got to pay too much attention to. Control D, to connect to your sign for the first time, the very first option here in Control, search for devices, you go ahead and hit that after you've made the network changes we've shown you in a previous video. And if you haven't seen that yet, how to configure your network, you can go ahead and click the icon in the top corner to reference that video. So search for devices. Once you hit it, your network's configured. The software is going to automatically search for your sign and try to connect it, and then it will import that IP address. Screen on or off, you can use this as a manual option to make the screen dark. It doesn't actually power the screen off, but what it does is it stops the program that's currently playing and just replaces it with a dark screen. Brightness gives you an option to manually adjust the brightness levels, but for most signs that we ship, brightness sensor is included, which will automatically adjust the brightness up or down for you. Manual power, again, this is not an option that you will use, so we'll skip that. Amend time, this is to update the time. Since the basic control card doesn't automatically adjust for daylight savings time, so you'll find that twice per year you have to go in and go ahead and do an amend to the time so that you can adjust it to match your computer time. Restart screen, you can use that option if you wanted to cycle your screen. Format the SD card if for any reason you have a program file that's corrupt and it's causing issues on your sign. It's causing it to not perform as it should, a program freezing at a specific point. Sometimes that could be because the SD card, maybe got corrupted, or maybe there was an incomplete send and that's causing an issue. So you can go right here to format that SD card so you can get a blank slate, and then you can go ahead and resend your programs or your schedules to it. Modify IP, this right here is if you wanted to change the IP address of your screen by default, or when we ship the sign out, we configure this with an IP address of 192.168.1.128, and that allows you to find it on the network with the wireless antennas that we provide, so you can connect to the sign wirelessly without connecting to it directly. But what if you wanted to connect this to your network? For example, and your network gateway is like a 192.168.0, .1. You would also need to change the sign to match the IP of your network if you're going to connect to it, and this is where you would do that. But again, this is one of those technical things where if you're not an advanced user when it comes to computers, we'll log in and we'll make those changes for you. So let us know what you're trying to achieve, how you want to connect to the sign, and then we'll help you make those changes. Few of these options, server right here, similar things, server setup and Wi-Fi, those are network settings. So again, we'll skip those because typically if you need to make those changes, we're doing that for you. And then sensor backward read, this just refers to that sensor that we provided. We talked about that brightness sensor, but that sensor also allows you to display the temperature on your screen as well. So you can use this option to see what the sign is picking up, to see if the reading is accurate. You can also use this to kind of see the brightness level that the sign is currently set to. There's a few more options here that you can use to create content. For example, you can use Notepad to create text, save it as an RTF file, and then import that into your file menu, and then upload that to your sign. Paint, Word, and Excel. You can use Paint to, for images. You can use Word for documents. You can use Excel if you want to make tables. You can even use PowerPoint to make your content. And then you can use these options to launch those programs. You save them, and then in our, the next step, we'll show you how to import that to the sign. All right, so let's jump back right here to the beginning where we go File F. So File F, we'll go File, New. When we start a new ad, first thing we're going to get is what's called a program page. So a program page, if you're familiar with Microsoft PowerPoint, you may be used to seeing slides. So a program page is the same thing as like a slide. So each ad, you want to create a new slide for each ad. There's going to be instances where if you already have pre-created files where you don't have to make any edits in the software, you can. A quick way would be to make one program page, and then you can import all your pictures in that program page if it's already done. But if you're making the ad in the software, when I say making the ad, I mean you're importing a picture, but then you're going to type some text that you're going to put on top of that picture. Maybe you want to display the time with it, you want to add the temperature, you want to set different transition effects, and you're doing all that in this software. So every ad, you want to add a new program page for every ad. And to add a new program page, all we've got to do is hover over this icon right here where it says Create New Page. Go ahead and select it, and notice now we've got page 1 and page 2. Let's remove page 2 for now. All right, so looking to the right, you see all the options and menus that's related to this program page. So first one is name. So you can rename that program page. So let's say, let's say you're a restaurant and you're making an ad for happy hour. So we can go ahead and type happy hour inside there. And you can name it whatever you want to. I like naming my pages so that I can keep my files organized, so that in the future, if I want to make a change to this schedule, I can go back. I know exactly where each program is or each picture is, and then I can just jump in, make my change real quickly, and then get out instead of looking at page 1, page 2, page 3, and having to remember where everything is. All right, so play right here refers to how many times should we play this page before moving to the next one. So by default, it's going to be play this page once, and if you had a second page, it'll play that page once, then jump to the second page, and depending on the setting there, let's say that's also set to 1, it's going to play that once. And if you only have those 2 pages, it's going to play page 1 once, play page 2 once, and then it starts over. You can also set this to a number of seconds. So you could have it set to say, okay, I want page 1 to be played for 30 seconds, but I want page 2 to be played for 10 seconds. So then you can go ahead, change it to seconds, set how long you want that page to be played, and then move on from there. So I'm going to go ahead and put it back to that default, which is play 1 time. All right, so left and top refers to the location of your preview, and it could be referring to the location of your files. So right now we have no files, so it's referring to the location of our preview. And this little purple window here, this is our preview. So left and top in this instance is saying how far from the left edge of my screen or how far from the top edge of my screen is the preview. And when you actually add content, it's going to be more specific to your sign, where it's going to say how far from the left of your sign is your image starting, or how far from the top is it starting. But you don't have to pay too much attention to that, because the same way I'm dragging this around here, you'll be able to drag your content around and position that exactly where you want it. So notice as I move it, for example, now I bring it closer to the edge, it's saying, okay, I'm only 5 pixels from the edge, and then I'm 103 pixels from the top. So I'll go a little bit closer to the top. Notice right there, I could even just manually adjust these levels, say, okay, 0, and 0, and then notice I just snapped that right in the corner. So again, it's just referring to location values. Where's your preview? Because we don't have any content. We're on that happy hour program, so it's just referring to that preview window. Once we start adding content, then it's going to be more specific, and then we'll go over that once we get there. But again, you will have the option to click and drag it around the same way I'm moving this around right here. All right, height and width, this is one of the most important things, and it's going to be one of those things, once you set it, you don't have to mess with it again. Because what this is, it's the actual screen size. So how many pixels does your sign have, from top to bottom, how many pixels from left to right? So let's say, for example, you have a P10, which is a popular choice. We call that our Spotlight series. So let's say you have a Spotlight series that's approximately 4 foot by 8 foot, right? Perhaps your 4 foot by 8 foot is 50.4 inches by 88.2 inches, not 48 by 84. Reason for that is each module is 12.6 inches by 12.6 inches. So 4 times 12.6, 50.4, 4 times 7, 88.2. And it doesn't matter which sign you have, the concept is going to be the same, just depending on how many modules you have from top to bottom, how many modules from left to right. In the case of a P10, each P10 module has a pixel density of 1,024 pixels, which is equivalent to 32 pixels for the height, 32 pixels for the width. So in this case, if you had a 4 foot by 8 foot sign, which is that 50 by 88.2, then your screen size is going to be 32 by 4, which is 128, 7 by 32, which is 224. And the reason we got 7 is 7 times 12.6, 88.2. Sometimes we call that a 4 by 8 because it's as close as you get to it without going bigger. You could have had an actual 4 by 8, which would be 50.4 by 100.8. But it doesn't matter what size sign you have, the concept is the same. How many modules you have going from top to bottom, how many modules going from left to right. And you would have already had this information prior to this. It will be on your invoice, it's going to be on your estimate, and it's on your display diagram, and I'm sure we talked about it quite a few times in that order process. So let's say if your sign was that 4 by 7, 4 modules tall, 7 modules wide, 50 by 88, then your resolution would be 128 for the height and 224 for the width. And then one thing you should notice is once you set the height and width, if you take a look at your sign and you look at the preview, you'll notice that the shapes are very similar because this is an accurate representation of how many bulbs you have from top to bottom, how many bulbs you have from left to right. And your preview should be a similar shape to your actual sign. All right, so I'm going to use my default settings. This is assuming, hey, I have a P10 that is roughly okay. So this is assuming I have a P10 that is roughly 7 foot by 10 foot. By default, it's going to be 240 by 320. Kind of pause there a little bit because it's not possible to do 240 pixels with a P10. We could do that with a P8, but not with a P10. So we're going to assume that our resolution is actually 224 by 320 pixels. All right, perfect. So the next options that we have are multifunction. These are the elements that you can add to your screen. So when it comes to creating your content, how do you import your pictures? How do you import your text? What options do you select to do this? And these are where these elements come into play. So we'll start with multifunction. We'll go all the way down. And then a few of them you'll realize it becomes a little bit repetitive just depending on what you're trying to achieve. There may be a little bit faster way to get there. All right, so multifunction. If you remember, I talked about using these external programs inside tools to create your content. Let's say you use Notepad to type a text, or you use Painter to make an image, Word to type a document. Maybe you have a few images inside that document. And then, or if you use PowerPoint Or if you use PowerPoint to create slides and presentations, you can actually import those presentations and then upload them to your screen. So multifunction is a good, quick way to import content that you've already pre-made, because it doesn't separate your content based on different file types. You can actually have all those file types inside one window, and then what it's going to do is play all those files one after the other, and make it a quick way for you to just import those and just get things going. If you're not using a multifunction window, let's say you're using a file and a text window separately without using a multifunction window, the difference is the software plays those files as layers, so it's playing them simultaneously. It's deciding, hey, what's the background or what's the forefront based on the order of how you create your content. But first, let's go through multifunction, and then we'll go through the standard way if you are going to create your content in this software. All right, so with multifunction, again, we're going to go more in detail, but a file window is what you would use to import any type of media file, like a picture, a video, a GIF, a PowerPoint presentation, a pre-created RTF file. You can use a file window to import all that stuff, and then it's going to play those contents one after the other. Text is if you want to type some text. So you can either type text or you can import text. So if you already had the text pre-created, you wanted to just import that, you can import it. If you're going to type it for the first time, you can use this option to do that. Table, pretty self-explanatory. If you wanted to make a table, like Excel, for example, you want to have columns and rows, descriptions on one side, prices on the other side, or whatever you wanted to organize in that table, or if you just wanted to list a few things. Clock and digital clock, these are just two different types of clock. One's going to be more of that conventional clock, like analog, maybe the word. You have the hands going all the way around. And then digital clock, as it says, you're going to have numbers. You can show dates, and with both of them, you can show the date with it. You can decide if you want to have like words for your description for like the month, and you can decide if you want to have it in multiple lines or singular lines. But again, these one of the things we'll go into a little bit more when we start creating a little bit of content with it. Simple text is another way to make text. It's a quick, shorter way to make text. So you don't want any fancy transitions. You don't need things changing. You just want to put a message on there, shoot it out to your screen, so you can use your simple text. Scrolling text, it does exactly what it says. So it scrolls the text from left to right. You can speed it up, slow it down, so almost like a stock ticker. You can just decide how you want that text displayed, and you can position it on your screen where you want to. Sensor, this is what you'd use if you wanted to show the temperature on the screen. So, it'll pick it up and then it'll put it in that position. Does a few more things than just temperature, but for the most part, signs won't ship with like the humidity sensor and stuff like that. You only have like the standard temperature sensor. So sensor would allow you to place that on your screen. And then timers, if you wanna do a quick countdown, there's an event coming up, you wanna, say, hey, 5 days to this. You can even do a up count. Like for example, some companies have like I want to say like 30 days since last incident, or 31 days since last incident, or things like that. You can use a timer to do that. So either a countdown or like a count up. So you can have all those options there. So again, just a quick preview, just a quick recap of what we talked about. So let's go back to our program page. We renamed it Happy Hour. Notice when I selected that program page, we can see on the preview, it's showing me where that multifunction window is, and that purple area is what's remaining, where there's no content. So that's still area where I can put additional content for your screen, or for the screen, without overlapping. Or if I wanted to overlap and have things in the background, in the forefront, I can actually position that however I want to as well. Multifunction, we talked about this. It's going to play your files in sequence. So if you add a file window to it, it's going to pop up. Once you click file, it's going to pop up, ask you, hey, where are your pictures? And then you can import your pictures. Same thing for text. You hit a text window, it pops up. You can go ahead and start typing some text in. If you wanted to add a table, again, same thing, just go ahead and click on it. Notice it's going to say, hey, how many columns for your table? How many rows? Is there going to be a heading? You can hover over these options, and you see exactly what each option does. And let's see what else we've got. And then for clock, like I said, you can add different types of clock. You can even have a name on your clock. Okay, perfect. You can click right on the preview for the clock, and any element that you add for that matter, and you can resize it right there. And we'll go into how to align stuff, how to resize stuff once we start creating some content. All right, great. So as soon as we get into the next video, we'll challenge ourselves to make an ad. We'll add a few pictures in. We'll add create some text. We'll put them all together, and then we'll go through the steps to upload that ad to the actual sign. So join us in the next video. We'll have a full follow along, and then we'll make our first ad for this restaurant.